So, very good morning to all of you. My talk today would be on the recent advances in corneal collagen cross-linking. I have no financial disclosures. Now, we're all aware that CXL is an exceedingly effective modality of halting progressive ectasias. However, since its advent in the late 90s, there has been a lot of new understanding of the disease process because of which various new protocols have evolved. So I'll essentially be covering my talk under four broad categories. We'll begin with accelerated cross-linking. Now, we all know that the standard Dresden protocol, though worked well, one of the significant disadvantages was a very prolonged duration time, which included a 20-minute pre-soak and a 30-minute UV irradiation. So in order to overcome this major drawback, accelerated cross-linking protocols have evolved, which are based on the Bunsen-Roscoe law, wherein the photochemical effect, which is cross-linking in this, should be similar as long as the total fluence remains constant. So that essentially means that as long as you're giving a total fluence of 5.4, whether it's over 30 minutes or over 2 minutes, the final outcomes should remain the same. However, these accelerated protocols were studied vis-a-vis the conventional approach. Although safety was not an issue, the keratometric flattening and the depth of the demarcation line was much better with the slower protocols, with the 3 milliwatts and with the 9 milliwatts, and the demarcation lines got patchier and the keratometric flattening was not as great with the faster, more accelerated approaches. So what was the rationale behind this? We essentially know that cross-linking involves both an anaerobic as well as an aerobic pathway, but this oxygen-dependent pathway is what is responsible for the majority of the cross-linking process. So even though you're delivering the same fluence of 5.4, since you're doing it in a more accelerated protocol, one is potentially not giving enough time for the oxygen to be replenished at the same rate that it is being used up. Hence, pulse protocols evolved, wherein the UV irradiation was given intermittently. A study between the 1 second on and the 1 second off protocol versus a continuous approach did show a similar safety profile and a slightly greater flattening of the steep keratometry. However, a lot more still needs to be done in this area because we all know that the oxygen depletion occurs very rapidly in about 2 seconds or so, but the replenishment takes much longer, perhaps a minute or so. So whether a 1 second on and a 1 second off approach truly works is something that still remains unanswered. Moving on to customized cross-linking. Now we're all aware that keratoconus is a focal disease. However, cross-linking offers a global strengthening. So the question of customize arises from the fact that would a greater energy focal over the area of the cone give you better results? This is a very common paper, a very well-known paper wherein you can see that keratoconus is a focal disease, and under the same intraocular pressure, the strain of this results in focal curvature changes first. The same has been demonstrated on Julian microscopy, where the anterior shift is more near the area of the cone. Finite element analysis has shown that focal cone localized treatments have indeed produced a greater flattening effect as compared to the traditional broad beam. So this extrapolated into clinical settings is what is customized cross-linking, which can be delivered by the Avedro KXL2 system. So this machine allows a variety of customization. One can choose the total fluence. It can be provided in different shapes and different sizes. One can do a sector approach, arcs, concentric circles, or even a freehand drawing. The centration can be done wherever the surgeon wants it to be done on the maximum curvature, the thinnest pachymetry, or even on the posterior float elevations. And finally, you get a treatment parameter as such. So the results thus far have been very promising. Different patterns, as I alluded to earlier, like circles, arcuates, have been applied. The fluences have ranged from 5.4 to as high as 15 joules. However, some of the potential drawbacks, I would say, of these studies were that most of them were centered either on the corneal curvature or the pachymetry, both of which can be altered with the epithelial thickness profile and the clear film. And the surgeons did not use any specific diameters. They were different for different cases. So we performed a study of 60 eyes wherein we had centered treatment on the posterior float elevation, and we had used specific diameters of 3, 5, and 7 millimeters. So this is a very busy slide, but initially, but all I'd like you to focus on here is that the keratometric flattening and the IS asymmetry was similar to the earlier protocols of customized approach. And you can see that it was significantly better as compared to the conventional cross-linking. The number of cases wherein the change in keratometry of more than 2 diopters was as high as 50%. These are some of the cases where you can see that there is a flattening and a gross reduction in the IS asymmetry. And this was a nipple cone which almost disappeared post the customized approach. The demarcation line can be seen on ASOCT at 3 distinct levels, which correlate with the different fluences that have been applied. Safety, as in terms of haze and endothelial cell counts, was similar to the conventional approach. Now, a quick word about Pixel for low myopia. So we all know that cross-linking along with a halt in the progression of keratoconus also caused a certain amount of flattening in the cornea. So when we extrapolate this to normal corneas and do a localized cross-linking in the center, it could give us a myopic correction. The results thus far have shown success in low degrees of myopia, wherein the epi-off approach did better than the transepithelial approach. This was possibly because of a reduction in the oxygen concentration at the stroma. So in order to see whether oxygen supplementation helps in the transepithelial approach, we studied this in a cohort of 56 eyes over a 1-year follow-up. And we saw that the change in the MRSE and the keratometric flattening was greater than the earlier protocols, even the epi-off approach, and it treats low myopias of about 1 to 1.5 diopters. However, this was one of the cases where you can see a central flattening, and the patient had a correction of 1.25 diopters here, which remained till the last follow-up at 2 years. The indications could progress to post-LASIK regression. Suspicious tomographies wherein ketorefractive procedures might not be the choice, and low myopias could be treated with potential pixel or borderline tomographies. I'll finish with this slide. So there's been a lot of interest or upsurge with the transepithelial protocols as well now. The earlier protocols did not do well. There was a landmark study by Sotas et al., which showed that 23% of the patients in the transepithelial approach, as against nil in the epi-off approach, continued to progress. However, the newer protocols are now using a greater concentration of riboflavin, and higher fluence has also been applied. Additionally, supplemental oxygen and a pulse approach might improve the efficacy of these procedures. So this is what we have done in a study in our clinical practice. You can see that this is an Avedro mask, which is connected to an oxygen cylinder and allows a concentration of more than 98% throughout the UV irradiation. The video is not working. This is essentially a pulsed approach that we had used. So these are our initial results. We studied it in a cohort of 20 eyes each, where you can see that the flattening induced is similar to the epi-off protocols of the conventional CXL approach. However, the major advantages of this transepithelial protocol is that the pain scores and the haze was much less as compared to the conventional treatment. So I'd just like to conclude that with a better understanding of the disease process and newer machines available, we can now have more tailor-made approaches and possibly achieve better optimal outcomes in keratoconic eyes. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Geetansha, for a very comprehensive